Thursday, March 26th. I appreciate you all joining in on what's supposed to be a very nice spring day for all of us here in Pennsylvania. Just with a quick show of hands, if you could just raise your hand, your little hand icon, to let me know if you can see my screen, since this seems to be a pretty big struggle for me. I see some hands going up, so that's a good thing. All right, great. So we're going to start with our agenda, and I asked last week for some feedback and didn't get much feedback, but would I'm sorry, I just read a joke that one of you silly agents are sending me. You can't crack me up during these things. Anyway, I asked last week what you want to learn more about. You know, I really want to use these forums weekly to help build your block of business, build your income. And certainly we're not in the height of the individual enrollment season or the group renewal season. So what do you want to learn more about? I plan on having additional guest speakers. So anything that you want to learn about, I just ask that you either email me or type it in the block below, and I will make it happen. So without further ado, speaking of guest speakers, next week we're going to have Jim McDaniel, who is our Director of Marketing and Advertising, sitting in and doing about a 5-minute update on My URL. And My URL is a tool, well, tools, multiple, that we've created for your benefit. And Jim's going to kind of walk through a few of those tools and hopefully show you how these tools can benefit you and help you in your business. The next bullet point is happy 5th birthday to PPACA. Woohoo! I'm sure all of you celebrated on Monday, the 23rd, for the 5th birthday of this law. You know, we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot before the law was signed, and we certainly have seen a lot since the law has been signed, and it's not over yet. You know, every day seems like a new day with some of the changes. You know, most immediately is the King versus Burwell suit, which is in the hands of SCOTUS actually at this point, and we're supposed to hear in June what that decision is. And of course, that lawsuit in the court system is based on whether the states that have the federally facilitated marketplace are able to administer the premium subsidies. So it could be detrimental to the law if the Supreme Court rules that the subsidies can only be administered by a state-based exchange. Of course, you know, again, I don't think in June and with this current administration that it's going to be allowed to happen, that everything's going to be turned off. But I do believe that if they rule that the states don't have, only the states have the ability to distribute the subsidies, I do think that there will be some time to acclimate ourselves to these new rules. And I know our state is looking to develop a state-based exchange. You know, not this year, but they are certainly, and have made no secret that that is their intention. So stay tuned in. Well, I'll let you know as soon as I know anything on any of these things that can affect our income, of course. Speaking of issues, Pennsylvania Association of Health Underwriter is having their Day on the Hill in the Capitol in Harrisburg. It's set for April 21st. I would encourage you, since now our fight really is at the state level, that if you've not been to one of these Days on the Hills, that you give it a whirl. You're not going to be left talking to a legislator on your own. We will always travel in groups. You will support your team leader, and if you have something to add and feel comfortable adding it when we're meeting with the representatives, then you know you have to have a comfort level to do that. But again, if you want to just come along and participate in the event, then I encourage you to do so. I will have some information in my newsletter for the sign-up. And you know, at the state level, there's some legislation that is being presented about registering navigators, so that the navigators have to have a background check, and really the people that are working as navigators in our state go through the same vetting process, or a more stringent vetting process than they go through now, to protect the consumers, of course. And of course, with the state-based exchange, we can kind of give our thoughts on that, and hopefully gain some information as well. So again, April 21st, I encourage you to ask me about it or sign up. I will be there. The next bullet point, the NCQA with Highmark. This is also going to be in my newsletter. Yesterday afternoon, Highmark put out their producer information, and for individuals and small groups, Highmark is now requiring you to distribute the NCQA document. I'm going to bring this up so you can see it. This is the document. It is a 4-page document, and it talks about network versus out-of-network, medically necessary and appropriate care, prior authorization, out-of-network, network care, post-service. It talks about all of these things that I guess are important to consumers. In fact, it is important to consumers. It's just another requirement from we as agents in the compliance, another requirement to remain compliant and hand these things out to your consumers. So they will be in my newsletter as well. Again, it's for individuals and small groups, so please check out my newsletter, pull those forms up, and start using them. And back to the bullet points. We've talked a lot about the 1095A forms and the fact that over 800,000 people on the FFM that are getting these 1095 forms were given incorrect subsidy and tax information. Last week, the administration basically said if new tax forms are being sent out, if you've already filed your taxes from a certain date on, then you would have to file an amendment. Now what they're saying is that you don't have to refile your taxes with the new information, even if you haven't already filed your taxes, unless it would benefit you, this change in the tax form. In other words, the correct information, if you've already filed your taxes and you feel that it would benefit you to amend because it would obviously affect your payment of taxes or your return, then you can do that, but it's a voluntary thing. There's nothing requiring any of your consumers to do that. Great, huh? Nice birthday gift on the 5th birthday of PPACA. Our URL Leaders Conference is coming up on May 7th. There are 16 vendors that will be there. It's going to be an expo as well as a day full of breakaway sessions for annuities, life insurance, ancillary products, both group and individual, and health products, both group and individual. And some information on the senior products. As many of you know that are working in the senior products, there's a separate conference, Medicare Connections, that Karen and her department runs, but there will be some representation there for the senior products as well. So if you've not registered and you're interested in learning more about the conference, let me know. It's at Hershey Lodge on May 7th, and it runs all day. So let me know, and I can get you that information. We've also talked about the PAHU meeting in Erie that's set for April 2nd. And it's at the UPMC building. Information on this has been in my newsletter the last couple of weeks, and it will be in again today. If this is something that you have an interest in, please feel free to register. And also, watch for details coming out early next week on a new group health bonus program that we're launching. It can be pretty lucrative, so I would ask you that you take a look at that, and if you have any interest in earning this bonus, it's easy to earn, but if you have any questions on the actual bonus, please feel free to give me a call, and I'm happy to explain it to you. So that's pretty much it. That brings us up to date with some of the items that I had on my agenda. We're going to open it up for the question and answer period. Next webinar is next Thursday, April 2nd at 9:30. Again, we run these every Thursday at 9:30 unless there's a conflict and you're notified ahead of time on that. So let's see. Okay. Steve says, does the NCQA form from Highmark need signed by the client? It does not, Steve. It's just to be distributed the same way you distribute the summary of benefits of coverage, and for, of course, small groups, the SBCs and then SPDs. So it's just to be distributed the same way. At this point, there's no requirement for signature. Sean asks, can the Highmark NCQA be ordered in bulk? Yes, it can. And that's, I won't read what Sean also said, but it is pretty funny. You know, there's a lot of requirements on agents these days, and that's not going to get any better. And unfortunately, what happens is that the commission is not that great, but compliance and the work to remain compliant and keep your clients compliant, pardon me, is increasing. So, yeah, you're not going to get the money out of it that for all the steps that you need to take these days, unfortunately. But we're just trying to keep you compliant. And Susan says, do these need to go out, the NCQA forms need to go out to all those who currently have insurance for Highmark? Pardon me. No, that's not been indicated. It's just something that now needs handed out. If you want an excuse to touch base with your individual clients or your small groups, it might be worth sending it out just to touch base and keep in front of your client, but it's not required, at least not in the information that I've read. Tim wrote in about something that he'd like to, he would find helpful to find out a better way to predict ahead open enrollment period, what carriers will be competitive for the 2016 season. And yeah, that's certainly been a struggle, Tim. As you know, the carriers have to file their plans. They actually have to be in next month for 2016, yet the information is not released until essentially the day before open enrollment or the day of open enrollment. We try to get as much intel as we can to predict where we might fall and what carrier might be the carrier to beat. And as soon as I hear anything or know any of that, you have my promise that I will pass all that information on to you. You know, again, the struggle is that it's late in coming. Neil wants to know about the SEP for individuals, and absolutely, I will talk about that next week. Mike asks if the 1095 form is only sent out to the insureds on the marketplace, or do all PPACA compliant insureds get one? This year, Mike, only the SFM insureds are getting the 1095. It's not required until next year for the others to get it, for off exchange or for groups. So the carriers do have a responsibility next year. This year, it's the SFM that is only required to get out those forms. And Mario says, the group health bonus, is it tied to specific carrier or URL specific? It is URL specific, and it's for group health carriers, all of them. So it's going to be, you know, kind of a blanket approach, and all carriers will be represented, and it's going to be specific to URL. And another question here. Joe says, one of our health insurance customers found a new job and will be going on group insurance effective 4/1. They called yesterday and asked if we could cancel the policy on healthcare.gov. We tried to help them, and the end coverage or terminate button on healthcare.gov does not work. Keep getting error message. Can they just allow the policy to lapse, or can they call the carrier? Highmark to call healthcare.gov might take an hour, and it's just too much time to waste to cancel. Long question, but any advice? Joe, the carrier won't allow you to terminate an FFM case directly through them. It has to go through the FFM. If that button is not working, I would say the only other suggestion that I would have is to have your client, or you, if you're an authorized representative on that case, call in and terminate directly with the FFM. And that number is, as if we all don't know it by heart, 800-318-2596. That would be my suggestion, Joe. And thank you, Susan, for that. Okay. I'm trying to go through all these questions. Just to make note, there is a webinar at 2 o'clock today. Christy Saul is running a webinar and talking about cross-selling with the GAP program. She was our guest speaker last week and generated a lot of interest on the GAP programs in dental. So 2 o'clock today, they're having, she's having a full webinar. And if you want to sign up for that, you can go directly to our homepage under current events or upcoming events and register for that webinar. It's going to be a good one. And Joe's saying, they say we are not authorized. Yes, I know. You can put in that you're an authorized user for 365 days and call back in 5 minutes, and they've lost that information. And I know, you're just venting. I hear you. It happens. I could vent all day on some of the issues for sure. So it looks like that brings us to the end of our questions. Again, I encourage your feedback. I want to know what you want to learn more about. We're in this together. I've said that all along. We've been running these webinars for almost 2 years now. And, you know, again, we sink or swim together. This is something that we want you to find helpful and meaningful and a valuable use of your time, and also help you, you know, gain more income or clients by some of the things we discussed. So there is another question. Kelly says just a heads up, they've had 2 clients that had this happen to them. On their eligibility notice, it only asked for a certain amount of information submitted. However, they just recently received cancellation notice for their subsidy since they supposedly did not provide the information requested. As per the original eligibility notices, they provided the necessary information. The marketplace says they can't do anything about it other than submit an appeal. It's an incredibly frustrating process. And Kelly, I so understand that. In fact, another of my agent partners is going through that very same thing. And I did write out to the Pennsylvania Insurance Department this morning to see if they can offer any assistance or advice. You know, it's frustrating for all of us when we as agents know what needs to occur. We're following the proper steps, and the holdup is the illogical sense that the marketplace workers bring to the table. So, yeah. Let me see. Tracy says, ask to be switched to the special department and they can override it. So if you're calling the marketplace, just keep asking for the specialty department and escalation department, and they can help. And that's about it. So again, thank you so much for joining us every week. I appreciate your business and your partnership and the feedback that you give me. So I wish you a very wonderful Thursday, the rest of the week as well, and hopefully you can enjoy your weekend in the spring weather. Bye-bye.